Hey there, everyone. I'm Cassandra from CassandraTindall.com. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about Mercury retrograde. So we're only a couple of weeks into a brand new year, and already we are coming up for our first Mercury retrograde of 2022. And that is through the signs of Aquarius and Capricorn. But before I get there, I just want to take a moment and hope that you all had a really lovely holiday period and new year. I've just spent the last sort of 10 or so days recovering from the plague. So a bit of a delay getting Mercury retrograde to you, which is not surprising. But I'm back and I'm really looking forward to delivering more content here on YouTube throughout 2022. Of course, if you do like these types of videos and you do want to get more detailed astrological information in advance, you're welcome to check out my Golden Circle Club. So the Golden Circle Club is my membership where we have a community. I share with you all of the astrological information each and every month. We also have a monthly new moon call where we discuss the transits and our experiences with the astrology too. So it's a whole lot of fun and really informative to help guide you into living a more inspired life with your astrology. Okay, so with that little message out of the way, Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde happens or starts today, being Friday, the 14th of January. So Mercury has been traveling a little bit slow and it's grinded to a halt at 10 degrees of Aquarius, where it will be moving backwards from our perspective through until around the 3rd of February. There it will station direct at 24 degrees of Capricorn and then sort of move forward again. Now, one thing with the Mercury retrogrades of 2022 is that they are operating a little bit differently. So they will start in air signs and they will start to backtrack through to the earth signs. So what will happen if you're using the whole sign house system is that Mercury retrogrades will cover 2 house topics each time this year. So that's a unique feature as Mercury starts to sort of morph from the air retrogrades and moves more fully into the earth retrogrades next year. So one thing I want to address about Mercury retrograde straight up is, I guess, the level of panic that happens when people are, they know that a Mercury retrograde is upon us. And I remember thinking particularly about this retrograde several months back now when I was writing horoscopes for February. January, sort of that January, February. And I remember sort of thinking like, what a great opportunity this is for a fresh start if the new year, new me, the resolutions, etc., didn't really take off in the way that you anticipated. And that's certainly been the case for me. I feel like now, like this Mercury retrograde, it's actually giving me the opportunity to refresh and revise and redo all of those words that are usually associated with retrogrades, things to do with the direction for the year. So this might mean looking at my lists, looking at my goals, my logistics and planning. So there is a beautiful sort of maybe frustrating in some cases, of course, fresh start to this particular retrograde, like that new year fresh start. So I definitely don't think it's something to be like really panicky or concerned about, because when we get the opportunity to do something again, we get the opportunity to maybe make some improvements, make things better than what we would have done just that first time. I also like Mercury retrogrades because we get the opportunity to realign. And what I mean by that is some of the ancient ideas around the mind was actually the heart. So the heart was considered the mind in more, the ancient world, so to speak. Whereas nowadays we see more the brain as the mind. And Mercury retrogrades is when the mind, as in the brain, Mercury, strays too far away from the sun. So it's almost like a Mercury retrograde phase is where has our mind or our thoughts or our, multitude of distractions in modern day life started to detract from what the heart really wants, and where that sort of more solid, stable, authentic direction, where have we become a little bit unstuck from that? So what I love about the Mercury retrograde is that we get that chance to come back to the heart, come back to that center, come back to that centralizing and organizing force that really does guide a lot of our choices. Sometimes we try and outthink, outsmart, be really logical around certain things, but usually it's the heart that really knows what we want to do. So as Mercury retraces its steps through Aquarius and into the very late part of a Capricorn, it revisits the area of the zodiac it went through very late December and in the sort of first week or so of 2022. So it gives you that chance to sort of rethink some of those New Year's goals. I know in my own mind, I had all these ideas of how the year was going to start. And of course, most of it was spent on the couch watching Netflix and just surviving it. So I feel like personally, I have a real great fresh start on this year, thanks to Mercury retrograde. So what are some of the things that we can do better with this retrograde? And that might mean some of the Mercury significations. And so this might have to do with logistics and planning, like structuring your year, or thinking, oh yeah, maybe in June I'm going to do this, and then sort of reworking some of the ideas around that. So the logistics and the planning, the scheduling, the devil is in the details. And so when Mercury is, going back and forward, we get the opportunity to maybe dive a little bit deeper into the practical planning that is required after we have an idea about something. So for me personally, this retrograde, through the earlier part of Aquarius happens in my 9th house. And this week I had to complete some paperwork to get out of jury duty. Like, I was listed as a prospective juror, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not available for that. My Aquarius time is a huge writing time for me. I'll be doing horoscopes for 2023. So it's like, yeah, no, I got time for jury duty. So I had to kind of do, provide paperwork to sort of explain why I won't be able to attend that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they're like, yeah, she's not appropriate. So this gives me time to also really think about, okay, what do I want to do with the 9th house topics of my life this year? So that's going to be really important for me in terms of, teaching, writing, obviously not too many travels, but hopefully that might change a little bit. So how do you know if this Mercury retrograde is going to be something that really influences you and your chart? That being said, not all retrogrades will have an influence. Sometimes they happen and we don't even really know. We're not really aware of it. So one way to look at it is Mercury one of your profected lords of this year? So that's a house age-related system. If profections are new to you, I do have some webinars on that, and I can put a link in there for you. If the Aquarius house is a profected house for you this year, which it is for me. So I'm a Gemini rising with an Aquarius profection this year, Saturn profection. So this is going to be a notable retrograde phase for me personally. So if you've got Mercury as your profected planet, or maybe Aquarius or Saturn year, so it could also be a Capricorn profection if that's possible for you too. And this is also going to be a notable Mercury retrograde if you have planets or angles in your birth chart that Mercury is literally going to be passing over. So if you have a planet at between 10 degrees of Aquarius and back through 24 Capricorn, then that Mercury is going to be making a few passes over that particular planet. So, or point if it's like an MC or maybe your ascendant. So that's going to tell you a lot about, the significations of that planet and what you might have to think about or meditate on or redo something around those particular topics. So what's also really interesting that's happening to Mercury as it stations retrograde is that it's actually applying to conjoin its ruler. So Mercury in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So I'm just going to share the chart of the moment with you, and we can see that Mercury was sort of making a headline, a beeline there for Saturn. So they're going to make what would be their annual conjunction. But it's almost like Mercury's going, oh, hang on a minute, I've forgotten something and I need to go back and get it, or I need to, cross this T or dot that I, or I need to think about something more before I lock it in, before I commit to it, or before I decide. So Mercury and Saturn won't meet until I think it's like March 2 or March 3. So that indicates to me that there is sort of time up our sleeves to get something right, to really decide what it is we want to commit to in 2022. Now, there's also another element to this particular station, is that Mercury stations forming a square to Uranus. So it's almost like, oh, there's some new information, or there's an innovative idea, or maybe I need to think differently about a current problem, or, something that I'm confused about, or something that doesn't seem quite right. So there is a potentiality here for something new, something fresh, something interesting or unique. But then there's this idea here that, well, is it going to work, or is it going to have longevity, or is it something that I can, commit to over the long term? So as a default, this particular station is setting off or playing off the Saturn-Uranus square. So that's not new territory for any of us. We've been dealing with Saturn and Uranus throughout 2021, and it's a big player in the astrology of 2022. So this kind of new year vibe, this particular station is kind of ushering us into this new year energy, a couple of weeks in now, but, we won't go, too detailed about that. But there is this idea. It's like, well, can I solve new problems with old ideas? Or do I need to bring in something innovative? Or do I need to actually trust in what's tried, true, and has stood the test of time? And is that the way that I need to move forward with something? So there is this kind of tension between what's old and new with this particular station. So there is this idea here that maybe don't sign something or don't set something in stone, particularly if there is this idea of new information is yet to come, or maybe a solution is around the corner. So it is this sort of almost like no man's land for Mercury. So it is definitely this kind of marking time. So it might be a great opportunity to do those real Mercury Saturn things, have the pros, have the cons, decide, what is appropriate for you, decide, cross this off, or maybe put an asterisk next to that because that's something I don't want to compromise or change. So there are a few ideas for you around this particular Mercury station. Obviously, it's in the Golden Circle Club where we dive more deeply into the particular cycle, and we watch the astrology as it happens together. So if you would like to join the Golden Circle, all of those details are in the description below. Next week, we have what would have been the new moon catch up. It's going to be a full moon this month because obviously I was not able to guide that group at the beginning of January. So we're doing the full moon in Cancer together. So if you want to get in on that, you can also, join the circle and be with us for that as well. So until next time, I hope you have a really great Mercury station, and I'd love to hear what house it's activating for you, and of course, what you expect from this particular cycle. And I'd love to hear your Mercury retrograde stories in that comment below.